Good evening. You're listening live to the Extreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob. Alongside me tonight, I have Professor Pixel and I have RDV, and we are covering 1983's cult classic, Sleepaway Camp, a movie that spawned a lot of really bad sequels, a sort of reimaging reboot a little bit later. And all I'm going to say, and I don't normally do this here on the Extreme Movie Show, is this is definitely an extreme movie. And if you have not seen it, even though we generally have no issues going over spoilers and twists and plots, we're going to tread somewhat lightly about it because this is not your father's ordinary slasher movie. And I, as your host, Rob, a child of the 80s, I'm joined by, like I say, Professor Pixel, the young 20-something millennial that had never seen this. RDV, he's caught in that generation between us. Shocking ending, not going to lie. This is not a slasher film, guys. This is not a horror film. This is a coming-of-age movie. This is the adult version of Meatballs, like the Bill Murray comedy, which is family-friendly. It's wholesome. It's good-natured. It's the positive spin on life. This movie, Sleepaway Camp, if you've been in any sort of camp back in the day, it's absolutely 100% accurate down to the way the people are cast, the kind of stuff that goes on, the language, the way they dress. This is a hell of an interesting film, especially considering it's supposed to be a slasher when there's really hardly any violence to it, too.
No, it is, and they don't show it really. They just show the afterwards, Matt.
It's implied, isn't it?
Yes, which to me works better sometimes.
Yeah, I agree.
Because your imagination is much more devastating than the actual seeing it committed. So when you see the results, you're like, oh man, and then like there wasn't that many kills in here either.
No,
because I said when we think of slashers, we think of we go right to Jason or Michael Myers, from Halloween, and you just rack up the kill counts, But also shows with slasher movies is always topless women or people having sex. It wasn't.
Yeah,
really.
and I think you bring up a good point here as we go to Pixel for his initial thoughts here in a moment, is that when we're talking about slasher films, this is 1983. It's an American film, low budget, super low budget. The guy didn't do anything else except one other film much later, a reimaging of it. So it's kind of a one and done, which is extremely unusual. But when you see the poster, maybe you see a clip of it, you go, oh, it's a bunch of kids. They're at a summer camp, so there's going to be a lot of undressing. There's going to be a lot of people having sweet relations and dying in the middle of it, because we've seen that already with Halloween franchise, with the Friday the 13th franchise, with what, of course, would be the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise and several more. It's surprising that that doesn't happen in here, and it definitely makes it a little bit more interesting. Pixel, what are your initial thoughts on this?
Wow. I didn't know.
This is how they made them back in the day, sir. They would not make a movie like this today at all.
No, they definitely wouldn't, and I'm not going to get into reasons why. But I will say when it started off, I was a little worried because the Aunt Martha, who's raising the kid after the boating accident, she just seems off her rocker with terrible acting. But I'm not going to get into that. I'm going to talk about how the movie, I was really impressed by quite a few things. The deaths that they do show can be quite brutal, like that. Yeah. Because they don't show who the killer is. They don't have a mask. This isn't Jason. No. This is handled. They really wanted to keep things.
It's more of a thriller, right? Not a slasher.
Yeah, it's more in lines with a thriller. I will say though, the pedophile at the beginning, I probably shouldn't have said that. Definitely deserved the pot just spilling all over him. I was really impressed with the effects of the accident.
The boils.
Yeah, when it was bubbling up. Yeah.
Yep.
So the movie starts off basically, I think, in an interesting way, because one, this movie's overscored, but I think the score does help it. I mean, it's nonstop, constant music. It's pretty rare, but it does help. Otherwise, this might feel a lot slower. But it starts off with, I think, a very interesting thing that almost makes me feel like it's almost like a ghost thing, because they show shots of like this camp and this body of water, this lake, and the trees are turning in their fall colors. And it's actually quite pretty to look at too. I had a really nice print of it, so it translated well over the years. It wasn't a rough cut. And you hear people talking as there's shots of this camp that you see is closed or whatever, and then when it cuts and becomes live, it's actually the summer before. So I thought, okay, this is a nice transition. You get the human element in here too. We don't know what's going to happen or expect, but you see middle-aged gentleman who's got a decent body on him, good-looking guy. He's got two decent-looking kids with him, and they're out on the lake with the boat. And we see that crisscrossed with a younger guy trying to show or let a young lady learn how to ride a boat. And so you're going, okay, something bad is going to happen. There's going to be this boating accident. And of course there is, but they don't really show it to you because we get the fast forward to what you're saying there, Pixel, about the guy's sister who's,
8 years after the accident,
Yeah, and so at first you think the aunt is horribly acting because she overdoes it, but she does mention she's a doctor. Oh, I almost forgot one thing. Here's your physicals. Nobody needs to know where you got them from, but it's good for both of you two that I'm a doctor. One of the most important lines of the entire film, when you sit through this whole thing, it hit me like a ton of bricks with the ending. So when they get to camp, there's all these camp things going on. The girl that's been traumatized because of the boating accident, this is several years later, like 7-8 years later, she's almost like a mute. She doesn't speak. She's like in a trance. She's cute. She's attractive. She's like around that 12-ish, 13, 14-ish age where she's kind of gangly, getting ready to come into her own, physically speaking. And I'm trying to say this in the most PC manner possible because I would hate for anybody to feel offended or triggered the fact that those things happen, whether you're a male or a female. But one thing that is neat, RDV, and I wanted you to talk about this because I think you'd mentioned this before, something you remembered. Her cousin or whatever it acts like a protector for her too, and you thought that was a really neat part of the movie.
Yeah. What it was is Angela, she's a survivor of the boating accident, so, and she's traumatized by this. So she's afraid of water and all this. So I found out later in the movie. And she's shy, doesn't really talk to anybody, kind of stares and all kind of spacey. So of course, kids being they are at that age, they're cruel. And what's really I like about this movie is the fact that's, that they do portray off it's real. This is what happens when adults are around, even because they have the counselors are actually kids themselves. They're like in their early 20s or maybe 19, whatever, and they don't give a crap about the kids. They're there for a paycheck. It's their summer. They're getting paid. They don't. And this is, like I said, you bring up Meatballs. Any camp movie like this, and sadly this happens. So I love the fact that she's with her cousin Ricky. Who also thinks that her mom is weird. Yep. And I want to touch tightly on the mom. The way she was dressed and the way she acted, it almost got that Tim Burton kind of feeling for me. Like, it's like
it's a good call.
She just stepped out of the house, with Beetlejuice. I was just like, this woman's really messed up in the head. Well, that'll come on to play later in the movie.
Yes.
But yeah, I love they're just everything. Ricky is probably the most original character I've come across. That probably seems most genuine in this movie. The way he acts, the way just teasing the kid. They call him Mozart. He's like a nerdy kid. They're just pulling pranks on him all the time, shaving cream, and then just to sit up with his butt, the kid's butt in his face, power of the mind, and then just going through the whole entire movie, you just get a joy, watching this kid because it seems genuine. It doesn't seem scripted. Doesn't seem, like it's fake. He's really protective over his cousin because who wouldn't be? When she's kind of shy and stuff. It's your family, of course. It'd be like having a little sister. You're gonna, or even older sister. You're gonna be protective because that's your guy. That's just the way you are. The counselors, Yes, you can tell the 80s fashion's really high peak in 83.
I was just looking for Canadian tuxedo to kind of complete the ensemble they had.
Oh, the half muscle shirts, with the short shorts.
Denim shorts.
Yes, and then just the way everybody's acting, because the counselors there in her church trying to get with the female counselors, it's like you said, it is feels like it's kind of what Friday the 13th was kind of like that too. I kind of felt they're kind of going for an angle like that, because you almost after I think when did Friday the 13th come out? It was this
1980,
later?
I believe.
Yeah, so this is after that. So you're automatically they want you to believe that there's a boating accident and okay, wow, someone's going around killing someone. Like maybe it's this girl. She's really quiet. You don't know that, but after because a lot of people think well maybe it's a family member. Maybe it's the mom. Maybe the mom's crazy, killing people. We saw that in Friday the 13th, the first movie. So everybody after seeing that, everybody's like, oh, it's gonna be someone. And I love how they play tricks with you, making you think it is. And then even the camp runner, the guy the older guy who's running it, he starts to think that it's Ricky because every time this girl gets picked on, someone dies, and he goes to protect her all the time. I'm
gonna get him, Meg. I'm gonna get him.
Yeah, and this guy is like Hugh Hefner age, like he looks like he's probably in his late 80s, or early 80s, late 70s. Kind of a Don Knotts personality on Three's Company. Thinks he's a suave guy. And then, even one of the girl counselors, I don't know what she's thinking. Maybe she just wants money or something, but she's going to, go sleep with them. I'm thinking, that's so far-fetched. But then again, who knows?
No, let's pause right there. Yeah, because this one thing I think that is lost on a lot of people with this film, and I want to bring it up because it validates everything that you're saying. Okay, this was a micro-budget movie. And everybody that starred in it, most of them were just first-time actors, and they weren't serious actors. So these are real people acting like real-life people. It's basically casting adolescents as adolescents. It's not casting 23, 24-year-olds trying to play like they're 12, 13, 14 years old, which, of course, Hollywood lies and cheats, and that's what a movie is. It's playing something you're not. But here, there is that level of authenticity because the pranks they pull, all that stuff went on at summer camp. The teenage girl is trying to get with an older guy. It still happens to this day, regardless of what people might want to say, whether they think that's right or wrong. So it seemed a little far-fetched, but the guy was walking around. He had his bling. He ran a whole show. I would say he was a hard-drinking guy in his 50s, honestly. And the girl was probably in her early 20s. Not uncommon. I saw this personally growing up in different retail occupations. Those things do happen. They do occur. You even had jacked up bro dude that was having a hard time scoring because he seemed like he had an IQ of 100, but he was actually a nice guy. And I think the level of pranks and verbal abuse that everybody put on each other, that was standard fare back then, where you flick somebody off, you moon them. But it brings up a very important point that I'm going to lightly dance around and hand it over to Pixel for some commentary. It's sexuality. You don't see any female stuff in here at all. You see them getting ready to maybe make sweet love a couple times, and they die. That's normally not what we see. The guys in this movie are the ones that are sexualized. You see them standing around a lot of times in their underwear. I swear a few times, some of them seem like they're at full mast, especially when they come out of the water, when they're trying to go skinny dipping with the ladies. The men are trivialized in here, which, again, I'm going, is this a film that's supposed to celebrate homosexuality or not? I'm not sure. But there's definitely a hardcore sexual element that's not what we're used to seeing in slasher films. Pixel, you talked about some of the clothing choices and some stuff there, too. I wanted to back up to the cook who forced himself on her and got his just desserts, pun intended. I'm not saying that was right or wrong. I kind of, with his verbal talk before that whole incident occurred, felt like that's just guy talk. And they captured it, which would be very daring to put on film. I'm not even going to repeat what he said. But when he does try to force himself on her before he suffers that horrible death, were you shaking at this point? Like, what the hell's going on or what?
I'd like to interject quickly. He didn't die.
Oh, well, true. Yeah, that's fair.
He survived.
He was taken to the hospital.
He's a key witness, so she's going to jail.
Whenever he first spoke, it was I think it was absolutely disgusting. There's no that wasn't locker room talk, as it could be called. That was just
something you might want to see.
No.
We're not saying what he said.
No, he needed axed. So I was ready for him to die. Initially, I wanted the Aunt Martha dead because just how she was acting. So, but she wasn't going to be at the camp. So but he said that all that, and I was like, he's got to go. But overall, what I was going to touch upon was you're right. You're right. This isn't even Halloween, as it were. Really focuses on the sexualization of some of the females in there, but this does not rely on that at all, and it's it can be a little jarring because that's what you expect with a camp slasher at this point. That's iconic.
Mhm.
That's what you go in and you're saying, okay, this is what I'll see. You see nothing. All you see are guys' asses.
You do. You see asses a lot of times with the one prank and then with the guys swimming. One thing I wanted to point out, though, too, is that we're actually almost, if you think about it, watching the results of what the violence would be. And the effects are pretty good for what they are. And there's not a ton of kills, but the pattern that comes up is what RDV mentioned earlier about anybody that pisses her off or insults her or something like that ends up dying or getting seriously injured, let's say, attacked for lack of a better term. But what happens is it starts off with the older guy the forcible older guy who ends up getting burned horribly in a kitchen accident. So you're like, okay, I get it. That's disgusting, but it looked really good. And again, you don't see, you just see the facts. You see like the blisters on his face and all that. What you see in this movie are a collection of summer camp scenes just play out. And what really happens in each scene is not a death or a murder or anything. It's really somebody struggling with sexuality, whether it's the girl that was with the guy from the year before that's now floozing around with the older guys and trying to find anybody, whether it's her kind of not speaking to anybody, but one guy being genuine with her. Now she's opening up, so she's blossoming, if you were. Whether it's the older girls, bullying her because of what's going on, because of the attention that she's starting to get from some of the guys. And it's not a huge camp. And they made a mention, and when the guys even gets pissed off, he's like, how do you expect to score when there's only like 5 or 6 women here or girls here and like 15, 20 guys? It's a sausage fest, right?
Yep.
But that's the whole point, is that you see everybody struggling with A, getting the attention of somebody, B, seeing who's interested in them. All the classic things when you're an adolescent, no matter how good looking you are, what your sexuality may be, whether you think you're experimenting, whatever age you are, because here it goes from about 10 to 12 years old to early 20s. Everybody's in the same position. And there's not the one person you go, oh my God, they're smoking hot, or oh my God, he's smoking hot. It's not like that in here. And that's one of the things that really stood out, because you get a scene about halfway through that you go, oh, wait a minute, what the hell is that? And it's like a flashback where you see her father, who was in the boating accident at the beginning of the film. He's in bed looking fondly at another gentleman, and they're caressing each other lovingly, gazing into each other's eyes.
Lenny,
they are not having relations. You're looking at it going, wait a minute, what's going on? Why is she picturing her father having relations with another man? And then we realize at that point, if we have it now, because it's not clear at the beginning, that whatever the situation is him having the 2 kids at the beginning of the film, is that he's either bisexual or he's gay. And so you're like, okay, now how does that affect the film? Because we get another scene later on where we see her as she's almost being forced on by the guy she likes, who takes a little too far, and she says no, where she sees a picture, it's herself as a kid on the bed with the boy, her brother, and she's like pointing at the brother, and you're like, what the hell is that? Why is that symbolic?
The 2 kids, they're on the bed.
It's an extremely important scene that I'm holding off and talking about. Yeah. But once you saw 1 or 2 of these scenes, you start going, wait a minute, I've been thinking about this film entirely wrong up until the ending. And the only thing I want to touch on, and then I'll pass over to you guys for a little bit here, is that each of the deaths or murders, whatever you want to call them, as they go along, they definitely get more gruesome in nature. That's all I can really say about it too. So before we start getting towards that 3rd act, what do you guys want to comment on the film?
I want to comment on the fact that throughout the movie, like, there's this kid named Paul who basically who's friends with her cousin. He starts getting feelings for her.
He's the good guy.
He's a good guy. Yeah, until you find out that he starts cheating on her. She catches him on that. But before this, though,
It's not cheating. She rejected him.
Yeah, no.
He got
I
played.
don't think it's cheating. It's
But-
summer camp for the first off.
I know, but
Classic
really, a
situation,
really
though.
big clue. And before you even see this scene, with the dad and stuff, because remember the very beginning, the guy in bed with her dad. She's remembering is actually I guess you found out his name is Lenny. Lenny was a guy who was on the boat, or not on the boat. He's on the water. He's the one in there to go get him after the boating accident. He was standing there watching,
Right.
calling him to come in. You hear from the girls. She's like, why is especially Judy? Judy gives away a lot of the plot, as far as everything. She says, why doesn't she ever take a shower with us? And the other counselor says, well, she can shower in the morning wherever she wants to. She doesn't have to shower with everybody else. That gives you a really, really big clue, especially, and then you see those scenes where the girl's pointing at the boy, and then the boy's pointing at the girl, and it changes. You're like, oh my gosh. So, and then, so when the ending comes, you kind of like, oh my gosh, they give you the clues right away. Like, so
Well,
if you,
I agree, but let me ask you this. When she's almost not defending her, but explaining to her, basically saying, well, she can take showers anytime she wants or like that, were you getting a bit of a lesbian vibe from her? Because remember, there was the one girl that was kind of like in charge, and then there was the one that had the muscle, and then there was the really nice, soft, gentle one that almost seemed to befriend her. It looks like there's almost that, like, I don't know if I'm that way, but I kind of have feelings for her, and it felt like she was defending her a little bit.
I think what it was is that girl saw the other girl's a major bitch, and she saw how the Meg and then Judy was jealous. Judy didn't like the fact that the other girl was getting attention and she couldn't get any guys. She wanted, she was too scared to make out with guys. So
Judy is the one who calls her out on what Rob said, her sexuality. Yeah. Oh, is it because you're a little bit fruity, something like that? And it does have an effect on the film. And I don't want to give too much away, but I will say, when the deaths start becoming a little unhinged is when you can tell that it's pushing, like, there's mental stability is out of the question. And the main one that does this, the main eye opener to, oh crap, this is it, is when the little kids that are left camping are butchered. That's
one of the most horrific scenes in here.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I want to point out there's a problem with who the killer is, because the very first murder takes place in the water under the boat, and then especially when the guy who was getting high with went to go take that boat out on the water with Elizabeth, whatever, and he said, careful, fall in there, like the snake, still get you, the water snakes. And then she goes away, and he's in there, and then someone comes up underneath because the boat's capsized. Someone comes up and he's like, "Oh, it's Elizabeth." He's like, what are you doing here?" And he gets drowned, or and you find out he's all stirred up. Now, at the end, when you find out who the killer is, it doesn't make sense, because especially how the character acted towards, being tossed in the water.
I'll say this:
is that an act, or is that just?
No, I'm going to say.
Go ahead.
I'm going to say whenever if you watch, it's especially revealed at the, oh gosh, it's really hard to talk about.
I know.
It is one mindset, not the main mindset that we are exposed to, but the alternate mindset, the other half.
Split persona.
It's verging on that, yes, and so that overtakes any kinds of fears or anything like that. So that's why it does make sense when it's especially revealed in the doorway.
I guess
revealed in the doorway.
Yeah, when you think about that, but I was like, and that comes back to with the mother or the stepmom, who's a doctor in the beginning. So. Yeah, I guess you don't want to spoil the ending at all.
No, I don't.
No.
I did want to touch on the scene, though, that you had brought up, though. There's two horrific scenes at the end, actually. So they're close to each other, and this is where things really get amped up. So there was a scene where the bitch girl and the bully girl, her muscle, basically drag her down to the water to throw her in. And so she kind of freaks out when she gets in the water because of her past and all that. But she ends up getting out of the water and gets escorted back off the beach. And there's, a group of young kids there that see her and, wet and all that. And they're just doing stupid kid stuff. They're throwing sand on her and all that. Well, it turns out that later the camper in charge of those kids is told, hey, you got to take them out camping, on the lake on the other side overnight. Yeah. So in the middle of the night, the kids are, it's like, it's cold. Can we please go back? They're not enjoying it. They're not having a good time. The guy's like, okay. And he goes back to the car with some of the kids and he comes back and the rest of the kids there, again, we don't see it. We see the effects of it.
Well, you see the killer pick up the hatchet and then you see the after effects.
Exactly.
So they were the ones
like, oh my God, the kids got it.
They're on the throwing sand.
Throwing sand, yes. So, okay. Well, that makes it a little, it doesn't make it better.
See how all this ties together? Because the other scene here that is really horrific is, and I got to watch very carefully how I describe this due to YouTube. The bitch girl that the summer before was the main brother's squeezed that summer.
Not the brother, and her cousin, right?
She's got a decent body, horrible New York accent, upstate New York. Meet me at the waterfall. She basically gets a guy to come back to her place, at night while people are out doing stuff. And so they're making out. And it's funny to me because she's an attractive enough woman, a young woman, where you see enough of her body, but again, no nudes. And so her thing is if you look back on this film, all she wants to do allegedly is get down. She wants the D and she wants it bad. She doesn't care who she gets it from. She's going to get it. Yes, it's attention. Yes, it's power, but she thinks she's queen bee. She wants some. So she's making out with the guy on her bed. And immediately it's like, she's like, you can't even kiss right. You're real sloppy. It's like, shut up. And it's like one of those things that when you're young and you're practicing all those kinds of things, people have their different likes and dislikes and tastes and, not making fun of anybody here at all when I say this, but obviously the guy, despite the fact he could have got some, he gets so pissed. He's like, I'm leaving. I don't want to get caught. And
especially after the main guy came looking for Meg.
Exactly. So she's sexually frustrated. So when the killer comes into the room after that, because of how bitchy this person's been, back then, and to this day that's probably still used, but the hot curling iron that was used to feather your hair, you curl parts of it and stroke it back and feather it. The girls did that a lot.
Before it, I want to say this. What do you think of the cold clock? When you got cold clocked face?
Think about what?
When Judy gets punched in the face.
It didn't bother me. It was
I laughed. I was like, oh my gosh, that was like, sounded like a sound of.
But the way she dies is interesting because she's there on the bed and the pillow comes up over her face like she's getting snuffed out. And you see the hands on there and struggling. You're like, okay, we've seen pillow smotherings before.
Yeah,
and you see the shadow of her hands on the wall because it's at night. But then you see a shadow of the curling iron, and then you just get burning flesh sounds. And that's all I will say is that when you think about it, like I say, each person got what was coming to them.
Yep.
And the worse they were, the more sexual, the more deviant, the more disgusting the kill was. Well, and it almost seems like overkill because the very last one, if you think of the kids as the last one until the final scene, the fact that they were all hatcheted up just for throwing sand on her, it's like, oh my goodness. And we don't even know who it is at the end. And we're maybe not going to reveal that too. But yeah, guys, any final comments before we sort of talk about the last scene?
Talk about some of the other, you missed the death about the guy in the stall. With the hornets, the little wasp nest. He was in there. He gets
the guy taking a crap.
That was like Now I wonder, because he got stung so many times. I wonder if the killer knew the guy was allergic. The way how he was blowing up, the size of those welts.
It's not. I don't think it's allergy. It's the fact of how he was stung by all those.
The volume.
So it's volume, and that's traumatic to the body. And it can.
It depends on your age and what you think as far as because I know people have gotten stung repeatedly before, but they don't die like that.
I've had to make phone calls in some professions of mine where I'm thinking of 2 cases where somebody got stung once,
Yeah.
and one was allergic, one wasn't. But they
Yeah.
can have a real severe reaction, even
Yeah,
if you're a
yeah.
young fit guy like he was.
But worst way to go, man. He's in there just taking a crap. The door's locked with a little broom handle. You tell me that weak little that guy, jock, I can't push it open. You snap the handle, dude, if you push hard enough.
Well, he
Well,
did ultimately.
Yeah.
Well, it took him like 15 times. There's bees.
Imagine where he was getting bit though, because he had his drawers down, and that's all he had.
That too. Oh,
Hey.
Well, it was in his game. I wouldn't say bit, and more stung.
Stung, yes.
So the way it goes is like that. They got the chef who gets scalded, and then the guy comes there. He's like, "You guys keep this quiet. You want an extra $15? How about you? Extra $50? Want to be the new cook? Sure, boss." I love that.
Hey, in 1983 money, an extra $50 a week.
Yeah.
It's big money.
So then, the drown in the canoe. That's like the first actual death.
And they actually tell, I don't remember the girl, but about sea snakes. And when the guy dies and he's pulled out of the water, snake.
It comes out of his mouth. That was
great.
Good.
Yeah, so that's that first actual death. Then the next one was the bees. Then I believe Meg was the next one, the third one. And then the kids, and then there's the last one. Yeah.
So.
Oh no! So sorry, Judy. Then the last one.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, don't forget the principal, the camp counselor.
No, the camp counselor with the arrow through the neck. It was so obvious. He walks in front of an archer target.
Yeah.
What are you doing here? It's like, no.
Oh, look great. That's the scene I remember as a kid when I saw this, because I had no idea what the hell was going on. But I remember that, and I couldn't remember if it was a Friday the 13th movie. And I always, every time I watched a Friday the 13th movie, it'd be like, oh, this is the one where the guy's going to get it in the neck with the arrow. But no, it happens in here, and it looks good. All right, so let's just kind of summarize things here as we get to the end, because we don't really want to say what the ending is.
No.
I will state this to everybody listening. It's a cult film. It's one that doesn't really get any press for a lot of reasons. After you watch this film, you understand what they are. I will tell you that, and I think we all agree that while the implied deaths are there, it's not gratuitous. It's not nearly as bloody or as violent as the first Halloween, let's say, which isn't that bloody of a movie to me. But as they go on in the film, they progressively get worse and more sexualized. And so we're left with, well, like I said earlier on, this is a progressive kind of movie. It leaves us with the final scene that will just kind of end before really saying what happens. Because if you haven't seen it, don't read about it. Go watch the damn thing.
There's only one small scene in
makes you go, holy crap. It is an oh my God ending, and I hardly ever say that. That's why I put oh my God with my name tonight.
That's us hoping you'd want to watch this.
Yeah, and I'm glad you did. This is definitely an extreme movie. This movie, we don't know who the killer is. You may have even thought there was 2 people that were doing killings, or maybe somebody has a split personality.
That's a level of thrillers.
Or a team.
Yeah, we just don't know. So what happens is at the end, some of the camp counselors, and this is at night, all this happens, and they're all panicking because they're discovering all these bodies. So they try to round everybody up together, get a head count, all that sort of thing. And the protector brother who had got beat up.
He's not a brother. It's his cousin, Ricky.
Excuse me. Bitty's brotherly. That's how I think it was.
Well, yeah, he acts that way.
The older camp owner who got the arrow in the throat had wailed on him and knocked him out.
Yeah, that was a weird thing. You see how he's just like Hulk smash.
Well, it's a guy wanting to keep his business, right? So he's
but the way he was beating him up, I was like, he just started using both arms, like.
And you don't see him hitting his face.
No, you don't
see it.
No, you see him choke him a little bit, but the arms go like this. I was like, what is this?
RDV will get it, but I pictured Spider-Man's death in Edge of the Spider-Verse. You know what I'm talking about, Kingpin?
Yes.
I just looked like King Kong to me, taking his meds and just bashing straight down. So actually this kind of moves fast, but his buddy that he's pals with that was generally attracted to her, and then got played by the older girl and got caught kissing, and then he did what a young guy typically does, he goes and he apologizes, and it's sincere. It's from his heart. He's like, hey, I'm really sorry. I don't like her. I just, was upset with you because they were making out. She pushed him off because he's trying to cop a feel upstairs, I'll say. And so she seemed like she almost was like, well, I'm okay with it. We didn't really know if she was going to whatever. But she's like, yeah, meet me down at the waterfall after the social. And so he goes down there and he meets her, and she goes to like take off her clothes or whatever. And so it's alluded that they're going to have relations or go out in the water and have relations or whatever. It almost makes you think of like Friday the 13th, going out on the boat while all the bad stuff's happening. You're like, oh, that's a great thing. I can escape the killing. Then the counselor shows up and sees her sitting on the ground. She's apparently stroking his head in her arms because he's laying there like he's dead, because she's holding a knife that we had seen earlier.
Is it Mozart's knife?
Yeah, it is. So it makes sense how it was there.
Meg in the shower.
Yeah. Yes. And so that makes sense. It's not like, where the hell did that come from? And she stands up, turns around, and then they all realize it's her. And all I'm going to say at this point is, I'm going to stop saying anything else because it's worth watching a movie. And we gave you tons of things to think about, tons of ways to get the ending. But when I started off by saying, these are my final thoughts, this is like a thriller. It's not a slasher film. It's disguised as it. It's a very progressive film. It's a very interesting film in the way that sexual roles are displayed or just expanded on, because again, it's like the real life version of what happens at a summer camp. There's actually really no sex in this film. It's the frustrations of dealing with it and everything else there too. But the ending, it just makes complete sense. And I will say this, after you know what happens at the end, even if you just go read about it, you'd be like, okay, I understand why this is only a cult film and why nobody talks about it mainstream wise or anything. It's not like Caligula, where it's softcore porn, or John Waters, where there's questionable things shot on film that people want to act like it's high-end cinema or artsy fartsy independent crap. This is not it. This guy was not a filmmaker, but he ended up making this film. It's a one-note thing. He captured something, and he used real people to do it, micro budget, people that never acted before, or most of them never again. There's a little bit of magic in this film of Sleepaway Camp, and we're not talking about the sequels or anything else there too, but I just want to leave it at that I was shocked at this selection, RDV. Great pick, definitely Xtreme. It is definitely a watch if you're into this kind of thing. Awesome film. Awesome experience watching this film, let me say that.
Hey, Melissa.
All I'm going to say is that's it.
Yeah, it's not one that I remembered well too, but again, any final thoughts, anything you want to just talk about that really you think makes it worth watching for somebody to go see without spoiling the ending?
Well, no, I just tried to find something that's not going to be like, because there's so many copycats of Friday the 13th and Halloween with the killer, and you see them all the time. I love movies when you don't know who the killer is. The thrillers, those are usually my favorite. Because you get the like form in your head. Okay, this person might be this, but sometimes they give you a lot of red herrings. But sometimes what you think are red herrings aren't red herrings. I love the ones that make you think. That's what I want. Because I've seen the Jasons, I've seen the Michaels.
Right.
It's all they do is come for those movies, because they have to show the killer. They have to come up with new ways to kill people, and that may be fun. But I like to try to figure out who the person is.
It's unique.
So for Melissa here in chat, and then we'll go to Pixel here to close up. The one thing I wanted to mention about being progressive, my description at the beginning of the film, I think what I wrote, the way I'm using that is for 1983 when this came out, there were not other films like this with what they tried doing with it. And I agree, a murder mystery is probably the best way to do it. It's a whodunit. I totally agree. It's not a slasher film, but the progressive themes that they were tackling in here, I think are kind of interesting too, especially when you know the ending and some of the other scenes make sense. And then you go back and you rewatch it and you're like, oh, that's what they're getting at. It's a little bit more of a tighter script than you think. There's not really a lot of throwaway lines. And like I say, it's interesting because you never see a film where men are generally sexualized like they are in here. And most of them in the 80s got boiled down into like ET level of schlockiness and goodness that it was like, it's just not real life. And so even though they're fun, enjoyable movies, sometimes people wanted a sense of something that was a little bit more down to earth. And I definitely think this film gets that.
Yeah,
So yeah,
I would
Murder Mystery,
definitely
totally
rate this
agree.
as being a PG-13 movie. Compared to all the other ones, which are more rated R because of the concept nudity, sexuality, and the more gory deaths. This was more like a kids friendly, like scary movie.
Kids friendly?
Well,
80s had a lot. In the 80s movies, you definitely had a lot more
I should say
full frontal
teens.
nudity, back nudity.
Teens, not
I
like
know.
yeah.
And
I'm
violence
going to
and
say
language, definitely.
We talked about Sleepy Hollow, and that I can absolutely agree. If when I have kids one day, when they're just a bit older, then I'll be like, yeah, it's okay for you to watch that. This movie, I would not let them watch until they are up there.
I would say Sleepy Hollow is probably more creepy than this movie then.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Are you afraid of this movie?
It's disturbing on many levels, whereas Sleepy Hollow, the only disturbing thing is a spooky man who cuts off heads. This deals with themes that can be contributed to real life experiences, and it's mentally mind-boggling and deeply disturbing.
Maybe back in the 1980s, but I don't see summer camps really being a thing anymore. Maybe then, maybe I'm just ignorant. I don't because I thought summer camps were pretty much done with. You know, who goes to them anymore?
I would generally agree with that. They exist now, but in different kind of forms. But not nearly as popular as they were 40 years ago.
No, 70s and 80s, and the camp cultures, where it's like you could get away with, having sex, or drinking and all, smoking and all that stuff, Nowadays, probably not so much. I don't think people are even, like I said, I don't think it's even, remember, camp used to be awesome to go to. Like, oh, get away from your parents, you're fun. Now, camps are pretty much like indoor activities. I don't think they're even really going camp anymore because kids can't handle without Wi-Fi.
It's clamping.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, no, you're right, but that's not what I'm talking. I'm not talking about the camp as the main thing. Nobody lives in a colonial town anymore either. But this deals, like I said, with themes, and no matter what, kids have interactions with each other, and that's something you can relate to even outside of the camp setting. And so just the thought of something at the end being revealed like that, it is chilling. It's chilling because it's not based on.
Sir, did you survive this camp? Were you there?
You're seeing the wrong things, because if I was talking about dying in a camp,
just working you, Pixel. You know that.
I know.
Look, I agree with you, Pixel. That's why I wanted to compliment this film for being a bit daring. I would totally agree with you that the themes make this movie different than the typical 70s, 80s, 90s kind of stuff there too. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Sleepaway Camp, 1983, a thriller, a whodunit, a murder mystery with some surprisingly interesting themes to it. Check it out. Listen to what you think. Jim, I saw your recommendation on there. I think we did the Sleepy Hollow one too, Jim. I believe that was the one you had requested. So we'll take a look at that one too. I keep forgetting to put Shocker on my list too.
Shockma?
Shocker. Shockma's already incredible. Check out Shockma as well here on this channel. We've got a lot of stuff coming out. We're getting ready to drop another episode of Twin Peaks.
Shockma's more realistic, bro.
Shockma was filmed here in Central Florida, sir. Do not denigrate that. Same thing with Miami Connection. Orlando Cinema's incredible.
The Shockma Connection. I need that.
That was talked about back
will
then.
Find it. The Shockma Connection.
Jim, if you don't know, watch it and wait for the ending, and you'll be saying, "Oh my God," just like I was, because that's so totally the 80s. Yeah, thanks guys for listening. Thanks for getting the word out. A couple just news and notes here as we close up. We do have a Facebook page that we just put up there to try to draw some more viewers here too. It's obviously called the Xtreme Movie Show. Check that out.
Link will be in the description of the video.
Yeah, we've got a few extra things coming out too here because it's Halloween month. We've got some Hammer horror films that are getting ready to drop a little later this week too. The Dracula, The Mummy, and we've got a few other films too. We're going to keep that up. We've most recently just dropped James Bond. We're going to be continuing that series. on a every other week schedule or so approximately too. But yeah, thanks for recommendations. Thanks for letting people know about us. That is always, of course, the best compliment that you can give us, is to let other people know we exist. Really enjoy making these videos too, especially during this time of year. So it's my time now to obviously say, thanks to Pixel and thanks to RDV for showing up tonight and giving their thoughts on this. I would have never, ever picked this movie because RDV is not big into slashers. And to do this, I think it's great. It's an awesome film. Great pull. I usually don't give you a lot of compliments, RDV, but I definitely want to do that because this was a fantastic, interesting experience with it too. Yeah. Have a good night. Steinerized is here. Yes, there you go. He's somebody that's made some comments lately too. There, he knows what all that 80s stuff's all about. I guarantee you on that. All right, guys. Have a good night. Take care.
Rock those half shirts.
Later. Yeah.
Stay extreme.